Hello, this is Doug the Football Guy, aka His Awesomeness, my first video of the year, and it regards the Dallas Cowboys defense, or lack thereof, I should say. Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator, has never had any success as a head coach or an assistant coach. He's always been a loser, and he still is. He needs to be fired. Flat out, he needs to go. But Jerry Jones handpicked him in the offseason. Jerry Jones, I just read a quote. He says, "I couldn't believe how lucky we were to be able to get him. I pounced on the opportunity." Well, as you can see on the screen, he thinks Matt Eberflus is great. He says Matt Eberflus is who I want in the foxhole with me. Yeah, I wouldn't want him in the foxhole with me. He's probably the last person. You can't play zone 90% or more of the time. Any NFL team and many college teams would just pick you apart. Most quarterbacks love seeing teams play zone because all you have to do is find the open area of grass, and the receivers too. They know where they are. Just find an open area. The defender's not going to come chase you. You can just run out to the open area, settle there, turn around, wait for the ball. And once you get the ball, see what you can do with it. Because the defenders aren't going to come after you until you have the ball. That's how zone goes. The defenders have to play a certain area, and they don't, stray from that. What logic does that make? It makes no sense. You can't tell me that Micah Parsons, if he was still on the team, would make a difference here, because he would not. He would make no difference at all whatsoever, because the scheme wouldn't be different. Yeah, he'd be rushing the passer, but I bet not as often, not as much as he'd like, because he'd have to be playing in zone. Granted, they might have given him, carte blanche to do whatever he wants, maybe. But that would be up to Matt Eberflus, and I don't have confidence that he would have let Parsons loose, as much as he needed to be. So I don't want to hear about, it's the fault that Jerry Jones traded Micah Parsons. Personally, I like the trade because Micah isn't doing much in Green Bay, and one player versus, the draft picks that we got for it, and the player, Clark, I would take that trade any day of the week, twice on Sundays. So, again, Matt Eberflus is the problem, but the bigger problem is Jerry Jones. Jerry, once he hears that people and the fans want a certain coach or player to go, and Jerry Jones had a part in getting that coach or player, and in this case, Jerry Jones was 100% involved in getting Matt Eberflus. Once Jones hears that, he doubles down the other way. He does it all the time. He gets stubborn, and he says, "I'm not firing Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus is not the problem. There's other problems too." I don't see those other problems. The offense is great. They're kicking ass. Special teams, great. Great punter. Best place kicker in the league. I don't see any problems anywhere except the defense, which is a glaring problem. The defense is ranked last in the league. And the offense is ranked number 1 in the league. How do you do that? You can't just sit around and expect things to happen. You do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's called insanity. And unfortunately, Jerry Jones has been in insane land for a while now. How long has it been? 30 years since the last Super Bowl? 30 years. I thought the previous drought was a long time. When I was a kid, watching the Cowboys, win Super Bowls and lose them to Pittsburgh. And the last one they won was in 78. They played in 79 against the Steelers and lost. And then from there, it went to 1992. or 93, sorry. And I thought that was a real long time. This is ridiculous, 30 years? And it's all Jerry Jones. You know, I admit that they draft pretty well. I like the way they draft. But what Jerry Jones does sometimes is just so hurtful to his own team because of his ego. If Jimmy Johnson would have stayed, Dallas would have won 3 or 4 in a row in the 90s. But Johnson couldn't handle it. He couldn't deal with Jones. He dealt with him for a couple of years, but he had to walk. He couldn't take it anymore. You just can't play zone 90%. You play zone in certain situations, okay? When the team is backed up, 2nd and 20, 2nd and 30, 3rd down and 15 maybe, something like that. But to play zone and just rush 4 guys every play, it's suicide. It's defensive suicide. You're not going to do well doing that. You're just going to get picked apart because every quarterback in this league is capable of picking apart a zone defense. And they will. And the only way the Cowboys can win games is by scoring 40 or more points. And they did score 40, and they tied with Green Bay. They're on pace to be the worst defense in all of football history, in the history of the game. And I think it's going to happen if Eberflus stays as the defensive coordinator. Everybody out there needs to rise up. If you make your own content, please call for Eberflus to be fired, and that's the right thing to happen. Everybody reach out on social media. Just complain about Eberflus and say he needs to be fired. And maybe if enough people, and I'm talking tens of millions of people, get on social media and say Eberflus has to be fired, maybe Jones will give in. Maybe. But looking at these articles that Jones has been talking about recently, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere at all this year. Maybe in the offseason they'll let him go if it ends up that they end up being the worst defense in history, and they end up 5-12, which is about 5-11-1. Okay, the one tie I forgot about. Once that happens, maybe he'll do something. At this moment, after 6 games, I don't have a problem with Schottenheimer as the head coach and the play caller. He's doing okay. The offense is kicking butt. And even with CeeDee Lamb out for a couple games, George Pickens picked it up and he's playing great. The tight end, Ferguson, playing great. Even the other receivers are playing great. Dak's playing, at MVP level. Now, if they happen to make the playoffs because they score 40 or 50 points every game, let's see if Dak can do it in the playoffs. That's the knock on him. He's regular season man, and when the playoffs come, he can't do it. But let's get to social media. Everyone that listens to this, pass it along. Let's get Eberflus fired. If you're a Cowboy fan, you must be sick to your stomach to know that he's going to be the DC every game for the rest of the year. And maybe next year too. Who knows? Jones is very, very stubborn. And he's not going to give in. He's going to do what he wants to do. All right, that's it for this week. For Doug the Football Guy, a.k.a. His Awesomeness, I'm signing out. And we'll get back to you for the next rant. Take care.